The first thing my brother asked after my grandmother died was not how she passed. It was not whether she suffered. It was not whether I had eaten, slept, or managed to drive home safely after signing the hospital paperwork alone at 2 in the morning. The first thing Evan asked was, "So, did she ever mention where she kept the cash?" He said it while standing in Grandma Rose's kitchen, leaning against the counter like he had been waiting for this day for years. My sister Melissa stood beside him, scrolling through her phone, pretending she was too refined to care about money, while already making a list of things she wanted from the house. Mum sat at the table with a tissue in her hand, not crying, just holding it, like grief was an accessory she thought people expected her to wear. And I stood near the sink, still wearing the sweater I had slept in beside Grandma's hospital bed. There was dried coffee on my sleeve. There was a hospital bracelet in my pocket. There was a voicemail on my phone from Grandma that I still could not bring myself to play. But my family was already talking about money. "The checking account first," Evan said, "then the house, then whatever jewelry she had." Melissa looked up. "The pearls are mine." I turned to her. Grandma had worn those pearls every Christmas Eve for 30 years. Melissa had visited her twice in the last year. "You don't even like pearls," I said. Melissa smiled without warmth. "I like value." That was the moment I realized something horrible. Grandma had been right. 3 weeks before she died, when her hands were thin and cold and her voice had become a whisper, she had looked at me from her hospital bed and said, "When I'm gone, they'll fight over everything they can touch." I had told her not to say that. I said grief changes people. I said family comes together when it matters. She only gave me that sad little smile. "No, Claire," she whispered. "Death doesn't change people. It reveals them." I did not understand then. I understood now, because while my grandmother's coffee mug was still beside the sink, while her cardigan was still hanging over the chair, while the house still smelled like her lavender soap and cinnamon tea, my family was dividing her life like inventory. No one asked about the wooden box. No one even noticed it. It sat on the top shelf of the pantry, behind 3 jars of expired peach preserves, wrapped in an old blue dish towel. Grandma had pointed to it the last time I visited her house. Not with drama, not like a movie, just a tired little motion with her finger. "If they come here before the lawyer," she said, "don't let them touch the pantry." I thought she was confused. She was not. Now, as Evan started opening drawers and Melissa disappeared toward the bedroom, I stepped quietly into the pantry and reached for the blue towel. The box was heavier than I expected. Plain wood, no lock, no label, nothing that looked valuable. That was probably why nobody cared. My family only saw things that glittered. They never saw things that mattered. I tucked the box under my coat just as Evan called from the hallway. "Claire, where are the bank statements?" I turned around. He was holding Grandma's mail in one hand, already tearing open envelopes. Something inside me went still. Not angry, not yet, just cold. "You're going through her mail?" He looked at me like I'd asked something childish. "She's dead." The words hit harder than I expected, not because they were untrue, because he said them like death was permission. Mum finally looked up from the table. "Claire, don't start." That was always her line. Don't start. Not when Evan borrowed my car and crashed it. Not when Melissa used my credit card during college and called it an emergency. Not when I spent 5 years taking Grandma to appointments while everyone else said they were busy. Don't start meant swallow it. Don't start meant let them win. Don't start meant peace matters more than you do. But this time I looked at my mother and said, no. The kitchen went quiet. Evan laughed once. What? I said no. Melissa appeared in the doorway holding Grandma's jewelry box, the actual jewelry box, open, in her hands. I stared at her. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please, don't act dramatic. You took that from her bedroom. I'm checking what's inside. She hasn't even been buried yet. Melissa's face hardened. And? Should we wait until strangers start stealing things? I almost laughed. Strangers. The only strangers in that house were the 3 people who had forgotten what Grandma's laugh sounded like. Evan dropped the envelopes onto the counter. Look, Claire, we get it. You were close to her. You did the nurse thing. Very noble. But don't turn this into some moral performance. The nurse thing? You know what I mean. No, I said. Say it clearly. He looked annoyed. You were around more because you had time. There it was. That little knife my family loved using. I had time, not because I rearranged my work schedule, not because I turned down promotions, not because I drove 40 minutes each way 4 times a week, while Evan lived 15 minutes away and still couldn't make it. I had time because in their minds, my life was smaller, less important, less successful, less real. Mum sighed. Claire, your brother has a family. I looked at her. So do I. Melissa snorted. You have a cat. For a second, no one moved. Then Evan smirked, and something inside me cracked, not loudly, not explosively, just enough for me to understand that the version of myself who kept absorbing these little humiliations had finally run out of room. I did not yell. I did not cry. I simply walked to the front door with the wooden box still hidden under my coat. Evan called after me. Where are you going? To call the lawyer. That got their attention. Mum stood up. What lawyer? I turned back. The one Grandma told me to call before anyone removed anything from this house. Melissa's face changed first, then Evan's. Not fear exactly, but calculation. Claire, Evan said slowly, what are you talking about? I looked at the jewelry box in Melissa's hands, then the opened mail on the counter, then my mother's tissue, still perfectly dry. I'm talking about the fact that Grandma knew exactly who you were. I left before anyone could answer. Outside, the air felt too bright. The neighborhood was quiet in that strange way suburbs get after tragedy, when every house looks peaceful because nobody inside knows what just happened in yours. I sat in my car and locked the doors. Only then did my hands start shaking. The wooden box rested on the passenger seat. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside was not money, not jewelry, not stock certificates, just papers. A stack of old letters tied with a grey ribbon, a small notebook, a flash drive taped to the inside lid, and on top a sealed envelope with my name written in Grandma's handwriting. Claire. My breath caught. For nearly a minute I could not touch it. Then my phone buzzed. Evan, then Melissa, then Mom, one after another. I declined all 3. Then came a text from Evan. Don't make this ugly. I looked back at the house. Through the kitchen window I could see them moving around, searching, opening cabinets, touching everything. Still looking for money, still blind to the one thing Grandma had protected. I opened the envelope. The letter inside was short. Claire, If you are reading this, then I am gone, and they are already showing you who they are. Do not argue with them inside the house. Do not try to convince them. Do not hand over the box. Call Mr. Ellison. Everything they think they want is not what matters. Everything that matters is in the notebook. And one more thing. Your mother knows more than she has ever admitted. Love, Grandma Rose. I read the last line 3 times. Your mother knows more than she has ever admitted. My stomach tightened. Mum had always been complicated, cold sometimes, gentle when it benefited her, generous in public, cruel in private. But Grandma had never spoken badly about her, not directly, even when Mum stopped visiting, even when Mum forgot her birthday, even when Mum said, right in front of her, "Some people become difficult when they get old." Grandma just absorbed it. Or I thought she did. I picked up the notebook. The cover was black, worn soft at the corners. Inside, the first page had only one sentence. If they fight over money, let them. Then, beneath it, they never understood what your grandfather built. My grandfather had died when I was 9. To me, he was mostly a collection of warm memories, tobacco on his coat, peppermint candies in his pocket, the way he called me Little Bird because I asked too many questions. The family story was simple. He had owned a small hardware store. It failed. He left Grandma with debts. She spent the rest of her life being careful. That was what everyone said. That was what I believed. But the notebook told a different story. Page after page, in Grandma's careful handwriting, listed names, dates, addresses, property numbers, bank references, and notes I did not understand at first. Then one phrase appeared again and again. Held in trust. I sat up straighter. Trust? My grandfather did not leave nothing. He had moved assets, quietly, carefully, not to get rich, to protect Grandma from something. Or someone. I flipped faster. Then I saw my mother's name. Marianne requested early access again, refused. Harold warned me not to sign. Harold was my grandfather. My hands went cold. Another page. Marianne, angry about the lake property, said Evan deserves a future. Harold said no child is entitled to another person's inheritance. Another page. Marianne brought Daniel to pressure Harold. Daniel, my father. He had left when I was 19, not dramatically, not with an affair people could whisper about. He simply packed 2 suitcases and moved to Arizona, then slowly became a Christmas card instead of a parent. Mum always said he was selfish. Grandma never said much. Now his name appeared in the notebook like a door I had never noticed. I kept reading. The notes got darker. Loans, pressure, arguments, signatures requested, documents refused. Then, near the middle of the notebook, one sentence made my entire body go still. If anything happens to me, Claire must know the original deed was never transferred. The original deed? To what? I turned the page. But before I could read more, someone knocked hard on my car window. I gasped and nearly dropped the notebook. Evan stood outside, jaw tight. Open the door. I rolled the window down 2 inches. What do you want? What did you take? Nothing that belongs to you? His eyes flicked to the box. That's from the house. It was given to me. By who? A dead woman? I stared at him. He regretted it for half a second, not enough to apologize. Claire, don't be stupid, he said. Whatever Grandma left, we handle it as a family. No, we handle it legally. He leaned closer. You think a lawyer is going to care about some box of old junk? If it's junk, why are you worried? His expression changed. Tiny shift, but I saw it. That was the thing about being underestimated for years. You become very good at watching people who think you are not watching. Behind him, Mum stood on the porch. Melissa was beside her, arms folded. They looked less like grieving relatives and more like people guarding a crime scene. Evan lowered his voice. Mum is upset. Mum is upset because I stopped everyone from looting Grandma's house. Looting? He laughed. Listen to yourself. Move away from my car. You always do this. Do what? Make yourself the victim. That almost got me, because he knew exactly where to press. For years, every time I objected to being used, ignored, or humiliated, someone in my family called me sensitive, dramatic, difficult, playing victim. It trained me to question my own pain before questioning their behavior. But Grandma's letter sat in my lap. Do not argue with them. Do not try to convince them. So I didn't. I rolled up the window. Evan slapped his hand against the glass. Claire! I started the engine. He stepped back quickly. As I pulled away, I saw Mum watching me from the porch. Not angry now, afraid. That scared me more than Evan's shouting, because my mother did not scare easily. Mr. Ellison's office was above a dentist in a brick building downtown. It looked too ordinary for the kind of secrets I carried into it. The receptionist recognized my name before I finished saying it. Oh, she said softly. Miss Bennett, he's expecting you. Expecting me? I had not called. I had not emailed. But when I entered his office, Mr. Ellison stood as if this appointment had been scheduled for years. He was in his late 70s, with silver hair, steady eyes, and a navy suit that looked older than some of the furniture. Claire, he said, I'm sorry about Rose. The gentleness in his voice almost broke me. I nodded because speaking felt dangerous. He gestured to the chair. Did they go to the house? Yes. Did they search it? Yes. Did you bring the box? I placed it on his desk. He looked at it for a long moment, then exhaled. Good. That one word carried more weight than I expected. Good. Like a door had closed just in time. He opened a drawer and removed a folder. Your grandmother gave me instructions for this exact situation. My mouth went dry. Exact? He nodded. If certain family members attempted to remove documents, jewelry, or financial records before the reading of the will, I was to begin protective action immediately. Protective action against who? He did not answer right away. Instead, he folded his hands. Claire, before I explain anything, I need to ask you something. Did your grandmother ever speak to you about your grandfather's business? The hardware store? A faint sadness crossed his face. That was not his business. I stared at him. What? The store was the public part, a small piece. Your grandfather was involved in land development, quietly, carefully. He purchased distressed properties through several holding companies. Some became valuable later, very valuable. The room tilted slightly. No, I said. That can't be right. We were told he died broke. Yes, Mr. Ellison said. I know. The way he said it made my chest tighten. Who told us that? He looked at me for a long moment. Your mother. I sat back. The word felt too simple for what it did to me. Mother. A person who was supposed to protect truth, not bury it. But why? Because she wanted access to assets your grandparents refused to release. I thought of the notebook, the lake property. Evan deserves a future. My voice came out low. How much money are we talking about? Mr. Ellison did not blink. That is what your family is going to ask first. I went silent. He reached across the desk and tapped the wooden box gently. That is why Rose trusted you. The words hit somewhere deep, not because they sounded kind, because they sounded like responsibility. He continued, The money matters, of course it does, but it is not the center of this. Your grandfather's holdings included land, yes, accounts, yes, but also documentation, records, proof of attempted coercion, proof of forged requests, proof that certain people tried for years to gain control of assets that were never theirs. I whispered, My mother. Among others. My stomach turned. Evan and Melissa. They were children when much of it began, but as adults they may have benefited from things they did not question. That sounded exactly like them. Benefiting without questioning was basically the family tradition. Mr. Ellison opened the folder. Your grandmother updated her will 8 months ago. She knew her health was declining. She also knew there would be a fight. She told me they would fight over everything they could touch. She was right. He slid a document toward me. Rose left the visible estate divided in a way that will upset them. What does that mean? The house contents, certain accounts, personal belongings, those will be addressed at the reading, but the trust is separate. The trust? He nodded. The Bennett Family Preservation Trust. I stared at the name. Bennett. My grandfather's name. My name. A name I had spent my whole life thinking carried debt, failure, and quiet disappointment. What does it preserve? I asked. Mr. Ellison's expression sharpened. Evidence. For a second I thought I had misheard. Evidence? And assets, he added, but primarily evidence. That was the moment I understood Grandma's sentence. Everything they think they want is not what matters. Everything that matters is in the notebook. My family was looking for cash, jewelry, bank statements, the house. They were fighting over the shiny surface of a much older story, and they had no idea that Grandma had spent years documenting all of it. Mr. Ellison removed a flash drive from the box. Did you look at this? No. Good. Don't. Not yet. We'll make a copy first. Chain of custody matters. Chain of custody. That phrase made everything suddenly feel less like family drama and more like something dangerous. I leaned forward. Mr. Ellison, what exactly did my mother do? His jaw tightened slightly. I can't answer fully until we verify the documents, but I can tell you this. Your grandmother believed your mother attempted to gain control of trust property using false claims about your grandfather's mental state before his death. I stopped breathing. She tried to have him declared incompetent? Yes. Why? So he could not block transfers. To her? To her, your father, and eventually to your brother. Evan, of course, the golden son, the one who deserved a future, the one my parents treated like a family investment. I thought of all the years Mum said money was tight, all the years she told me I needed to be practical, all the years she refused to help with my college applications because dreams don't pay rent. but Evan got private tutoring, a new car, business school, a down payment. And Melissa got designer furniture, wedding money, help every time her life became inconvenient. I got advice, mostly about lowering expectations. Mr. Ellison watched my face carefully. I know this is a lot. I laughed once, but it sounded empty. A lot is finding out someone forgot your birthday. This is... I did not have a word. He gave me time. Then he said, "There is one more thing." Of course there was. In families like mine, the first betrayal is never the last. He reached into the folder and removed a sealed envelope. "This is from Rose. She instructed me to give it to you only after you brought the box." I took it with both hands. My name again, Claire. But beneath it, written smaller, "Read alone." Mr. Ellison stood. "You may use the conference room." I looked up. "Is it that bad?" His face softened. "I think it is that important." The conference room had a long table, 6 chairs, and a window overlooking the parking lot. Nothing dramatic, no storm, no music, no cinematic lighting, just a room where people probably signed leases and argued over contracts. I sat at the head of the table and opened the envelope. Inside was a letter longer than the first. "My little bird, if you are reading this, then you did what I hoped you would do. You left the house before they could pull you into a fight. I know you are hurt. I know you are angry. But I need you to understand something before the will is read. They will accuse you of greed. They will say you manipulated me. They will say you turned me against them. They will say anything that keeps them from facing the truth. Do not defend your heart to people who have already decided you do not have one." I stopped reading. My eyes burned. That sentence felt like Grandma reaching through the page and taking my face in her hands. Do not defend your heart to people who have already decided you do not have one. I kept going. There are things I should have told you sooner. I thought silence was protection. I thought if I kept the truth locked away, it would spare you pain. I was wrong. Silence protects the people who did harm, not the people who survived it. Your mother has spent most of her adult life believing your grandfather cheated her. He did not. He protected what was never hers. She wanted the lake property sold before Evan was born. Your grandfather refused. She wanted access to accounts after your father's business failed. We helped once, then twice, then we stopped. After that, she changed. Your father left for reasons you were never told. He was not innocent, but he was not the whole villain either. I stared at that line. My father was not the whole villain. For years, Mum had shaped him into the reason everything hurt. He abandoned us. He failed us. He chose himself. Maybe some of that was true, but suddenly truth felt less like a line and more like a room full of locked doors. I read faster. The most important document is not financial. It is the letter Harold wrote before he died. Your mother tried to destroy it. I saved a copy. If this becomes ugly, and I believe it will, show them the letter only when they have lied so completely that truth has nowhere else to go. You will know the moment. Trust yourself. You always saw more than they wanted you to see. I lowered the page. There was another sheet behind it, not from Grandma. The handwriting was different, strong, slanted, my grandfather's. At the top, "For Claire, when she is old enough to understand." I pressed my hand over my mouth. I had not seen his handwriting since I was a child. The letter was dated 2 months before he died. "Little bird, If Rose gives you this one day, it means our family has become what I feared it might. I hope I am wrong. I hope your mother finds peace. I hope your father finds courage. I hope your brother and sister grow into kindness. But hope is not a plan. So I made one. I built something in my life that looked small from the outside. That was intentional. People who underestimate you rarely guard themselves from you. Remember that. The store was never the treasure. The land was never the treasure. The accounts were never the treasure. The treasure was choice, the ability to say no, the ability to leave, the ability to protect people who cannot protect themselves. If your family fights over money, let them. Money makes greedy people look down. Truth makes honest people look up. By the time I finished reading, tears were falling onto the paper. Not loud tears, not dramatic ones. The kind that escape when your body realizes someone loved you more carefully than you knew. Grandpa had seen me. Grandma had seen me. And my family had spent years convincing me I was invisible because invisibility benefited them. My phone buzzed again. This time a message from Mom. Claire, come back to the house. We need to talk before you embarrass this family. Then another. Your grandmother was confused at the end. Don't let that lawyer use you. Then Evan. If you think you're getting more because you played caretaker, you're insane. Then Melissa. Bring back whatever you stole. There it was. Greed wearing the mask of concern. I wiped my face. Then I took a photo of none of it. That was my first instinct. Gather proof. Not argue, not explain, proof. When I returned to Mr. Ellison's office, he was on the phone. He hung up when he saw my face. Are you all right? No, I said honestly, but I'm clear. He nodded like that mattered more. The will reading is scheduled for Friday, he said. I expect them all to attend. They will? Yes, especially if they believe there is money. What should I do until then? Do not go back to the house alone. Do not give them the box. Do not discuss the trust. Save every message. Record nothing illegally. Answer as little as possible. I almost smiled. That sounds like a lawyer's way of saying don't feed the wolves. His mouth twitched. Something like that. As I stood to leave, he added, Claire. I turned. They are going to try to make you feel guilty. I know. No, he said gently. You know they have done it before. You do not yet know what they will do when they are afraid. I carried that sentence with me all the way home. Not to my apartment. I was not ready to be alone there. Instead, I drove to the Riverwalk, where Grandma used to take me when I was little. There was a bench under a sycamore tree, and when I was 7, Grandpa had carved a tiny bird into the underside of it with his pocket knife. I found it after a few minutes, still there, worn down, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Little bird. I sat there until the sky turned orange and my phone stopped buzzing. Then, just as the light began to fade, one more message came through. Not from Mum, not from Evan, not from Melissa, from an unknown number. Claire, this is Daniel, your father. I heard Rose passed. I also heard you found the box. Please do not trust your mother with anything inside it. My heart slammed against my ribs. For 7 years, my father had sent birthday cards with no return address. For 7 years, he had remained a ghost my mother trained us to resent. And now, on the day Grandma's secrets began crawling out of the walls, he had found me. Another message appeared. There are things you were told about me that are not true, and there are things I did that I have regretted every day. If Rose gave you Harold's letter, then you need to know why I left. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then a third message came. Your mother didn't just lie about the money, Claire. She lied about you. I stopped breathing. The river moved quietly in front of me. People walked past with dogs and coffee cups and normal lives. Somewhere across town, my family was probably still digging through Grandma's drawers, still hunting for jewelry, cash, account numbers, anything they could claim before the law slowed them down. They were so busy fighting over money, they had not noticed the one thing that mattered. The truth had been waiting, and now it had my name on it. I barely slept the night before the reading of the will, not because of the money. By then, the money had become the least interesting part of the story. What kept me awake was my father's message. Your mother didn't just lie about the money, she lied about you. Those words stayed in my head like a splinter. The next morning, I met him, for the first time in 7 years. The coffee shop was nearly empty. I recognized him immediately, older, more grey hair, more lines around his eyes, but still my father. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he stood. You look like your grandmother. I almost laughed. After everything that had happened, that was the first thing he said. Not hello, not sorry, not how have you been, just, you look like your grandmother. Maybe that was why I believed him, because liars usually start with themselves. Truthful people start with what matters. We talked for nearly 2 hours, and during those 2 hours, the version of my childhood I had carried for years slowly began to crack. My father had made mistakes, plenty of them. He admitted that immediately. But the story my mother told wasn't the whole truth, not even close. The real reason he left wasn't another woman. There was no secret second family, no dramatic betrayal. The marriage had collapsed under years of financial manipulation, resentment, and pressure. My mother had become obsessed with gaining control of my grandparents' assets. The arguments got worse, the demands got worse. Eventually, my father walked away. Cowardly? Maybe, but not for the reasons I had been told. Then he handed me a folder. Inside were copies of emails, letters, legal correspondence. Years of it. Proof. The same word Grandpa had used, proof. By the time I left the coffee shop, I knew one thing. Friday wasn't going to be a reading of the will, it was going to be a collision between truth and lies, and somebody was going to lose. The lawyer's conference room was already full when I arrived. Mom, Evan, Melissa, Melissa's husband, 2 cousins, even an aunt who hadn't spoken to Grandma in years. Funny how death attracts relatives, especially when people think money is involved. Evan smiled when he saw me, the kind of smile people use when they think they've already won. Finally, I ignored him. Mum crossed her arms. Claire, before this starts, we need to discuss some things. No. Her eyes narrowed. No? No. The old Claire would have sat down. The old Claire would have listened. The old Claire would have apologized for a conflict she didn't create. That version of me was gone. Mr. Ellison entered exactly at 10. The room immediately became silent. He sat down, opened a folder, adjusted his glasses, and began. For the first 20 minutes, everything happened exactly the way my family expected. Personal items, furniture, jewelry, bank accounts, small investments, the house. Every time a name was read, someone visibly relaxed, or became annoyed, or started calculating. I watched them. Nobody looked sad. Nobody mentioned Grandma. Nobody shared a memory. Nobody talked about the woman whose life made all this possible. only percentages, only assets, only ownership. Then came the moment. Mr. Ellison closed one folder, opened another, and said, "Now we will address the Bennett Family Preservation Trust." The room froze. Mum's expression changed instantly. Not confusion, recognition. She knew. She had known all along. Evan looked at her. "Mom?" She didn't answer. My aunt leaned forward. "What trust?" Mr. Ellison continued. "The trust was established by Harold Bennett and maintained by Rose Bennett." Silence. Then Melissa laughed. "A trust?" Her voice sounded excited, like she had just discovered a hidden jackpot. "How much is in it?" There it was, the question. The same question everyone had been asking since Grandma died. Money, money, money. Mr. Ellison looked directly at her. "That is not the most important part." Nobody understood what he meant, except me, and maybe my mother, because she suddenly looked pale, very pale. Then Mr. Ellison removed a document. The trust contains financial assets. The room visibly relaxed. But it also contains records. The room tightened again. Mum looked down. I noticed. Mr. Ellison continued, "Correspondence, legal documentation, property records, requests for transfers, witness statements." Nobody spoke. Then he said, "And evidence of attempted coercion." Mum's head snapped upward. The room exploded. "What? What does that mean? Who are you talking about?" Mr. Ellison raised one hand. The room quieted. Then he read several entries. Not opinions, facts, dates, letters, requests, rejected transfer attempts, property disputes. Everything Grandma had documented, everything Grandpa had predicted, everything Mum thought had disappeared. For the first time in my life, I watched my mother lose control of a room. People started looking at her differently. Questions appeared. Doubt appeared. Then came the biggest moment. Mr. Ellison removed Grandpa's letter, the copy Grandma had saved, the one she protected for years, the one Mom tried to destroy. He asked if I wished to present it. My heart was pounding. Grandma's words returned. "Show them the letter only when they have lied so completely that truth has nowhere else to go." This was that moment. I stood. My legs felt shaky, but my voice didn't. I read the letter aloud. Every word, every warning, every prediction, every truth. The room became quieter with every paragraph. When I finished, nobody moved. Nobody. Then my aunt spoke first. "You tried to take the property?" Mom looked around desperately. "It wasn't like that." But nobody interrupted. Nobody defended her. For the first time, she was standing in the same silence she had forced others to stand in for years. Truth had finally arrived, and it didn't need help. The next hour felt surreal. More documents emerged, more records, more evidence. Nothing criminal, nothing dramatic enough for television, but enough to destroy credibility, enough to expose years of manipulation, enough to explain why Grandma stopped trusting certain people, enough to explain why Grandpa built the trust the way he did. Eventually, Evan stood. "You knew?" He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Mom. She said nothing. His voice cracked. "You knew all this?" Still nothing. For the first time, I saw something I had never seen before. The favorite child realizing he had been used too. Not as badly, not in the same way, but used. The golden child wasn't the mastermind. He was an investment. And investments are only valuable until they stop producing returns. The look on his face told me he finally understood. Several months later, everything settled. The legal work finished. The properties were evaluated. The trust remained intact. And the outcome surprised everyone, especially my family, because the biggest victory wasn't financial. Yes, I received assets. Yes, I received part of the trust. Yes, my life became easier. But that wasn't the real inheritance. The real inheritance was clarity. For the first time in my life, I stopped trying to earn love from people who had already decided how much of it I deserved. That changed everything. I stopped chasing approval, stopped explaining myself, stopped shrinking, stopped apologizing for existing. Mum called many times, at first to argue, then to defend herself, then to justify, then to blame, eventually to apologize. A real apology never came, only versions of one. I learned those are different things. Melissa stopped speaking to me entirely. That hurt less than I expected. Evan surprised me. 6 months later, he asked to meet, not because of money, not because of documents, because he wanted to know Grandma, the real Grandma, the one he had missed while chasing everything else. We spent 3 hours sharing stories. For the first time in our lives, we talked like siblings instead of competitors. Maybe that was Grandma's final gift. A year later, I returned to the river walk. The same bench, the same tiny bird carved underneath, the same river moving quietly through the city. I sat there holding Grandma's old letter. The edges were worn now. I knew most of it by heart, especially one sentence. If your family fights over money, let them. Money makes greedy people look down. Truth makes honest people look up. I looked across the water, thought about everything that happened, all the fighting, all the accusations, all the greed, all the years wasted chasing things that never mattered. And suddenly I understood something. My family spent months fighting over Grandma's money. The house, the jewelry, the accounts, the property, the inheritance. They fought over everything they could touch, but they missed the most valuable thing she left behind, the truth. And once the truth came out, nothing was ever the same again.